Hello and welcome to the introduction to qualitative research. I am Ibrahim Osman Adam, and in this session, we'll explore how to systematically study and understand human behavior, experiences, and social phenomena in business contexts. Before we dive in, let's start with a simple question. Think about how you chose your breakfast this morning. What factors influenced your decision? How will you study other people's breakfast choices? In fact, these simple examples introduces us to qualitative research principles, which include understanding choices, exploring contexts, examining influences, and analyzing patterns. Now, to provide an introduction to qualitative research, I'm going to do something a bit different and really fun. I'm going to use something most of you interact with every day, especially something very relevant to social media these days. I want to rely on Instagram. Instagram as a tool to understand qualitative research. If you are not an Instagram user or you are not on Instagram, don't worry. This exercise will still work perfectly for you. Now, let's start by breaking maybe into two groups of those who belong to the users of Instagram and those who are not. So the first group, a group of active Instagram users. I want you to take out your phone and open up Instagram. And for the non-users, I want you to imagine scrolling through an Instagram feed. The beauty of this exercise is that it works either way, whether you are an active Instagram user or a non-user. This is because we're going to use Instagram as a lens for understanding qualitative observation. Now, you might be wondering, what does Instagram have to do with research methods? Well, think about it this way. Instagram is full of observation, or it's about observation. It's about capturing moments. It is about interpreting what we see. And most importantly, it is about telling stories through those observations. Here is what we are going to do, especially for the first group who are Instagram users. Open your feed, take 2 minutes to scroll, and pay attention to your natural reactions. Notice what catches your eye, and also try to think about why certain posts stand out, whilst others do not. For those of you who are non-users, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and then imagine scrolling through photos. Think about what kinds of images you would expect to see, and then consider what would grab your attention possibly. Now, as you do this, I want you to think about what patterns you have noticed, what stories are being told by those who posted the pictures, how are people presenting themselves, what goes unsaid but is implied in the post or pictures that they have posted. What questions come to your mind as you view those posts? This exercise basically mirrors what we do in qualitative research. We observe carefully, we look for patterns, we consider the context, we interpret meanings, and we ask questions about what we see. Now, in the next few minutes, I want us to do this exercise. If you are using Instagram, start scrolling. If you are imagining it, take this time to really visualize the feed. I will give us some time to pause over it. Now, I want us to reflect together. When you viewed the post or imagined the post, what did you notice first? What patterns emerged? What stories were being told by the posts? What assumptions did you make? And what questions came up? Now, think about how all of this relates to research. It relates to research because Instagram users curate their stories, researchers curate their data. Both require careful observation and both involve interpretation. Both tell stories about human behavior. This simple exercise shows us that you are already doing many things that qualitative researchers do. You observe, you interpret, you look for meaning, you consider context, and then you tell stories. Now, what you just did while looking at the Instagram feed wasn't just social media exercise. You were actually conducting qualitative research. Let me show you exactly how. For instance, first, you observed natural occurring data. Think about what you just did. You watched real people on Instagram sharing real content in their natural environment without interfering or manipulating anything, or maybe they are manipulating. That's exactly what qualitative researchers do. They observe things as they naturally happen. Also, you made interpretations based on context. Remember when you were looking at those posts, you didn't just see pictures and videos. You considered who posted them. You thought about why they posted them. You understood what they meant based on their context. This is what we refer to as contextual interpretation. And contextual interpretation is a core skill in qualitative research. Also, you formulated some questions. As you were scrolling, you probably wondered why did they post this, or why did they post that, or what were they trying to show? Maybe what happened before or after this moment, you would have been asking. These are the exact types of probing questions qualitative researchers use to dig deeper. Also, there's what we call recognizing your own positionality. Here is something really interesting. You notice what caught your attention. Remember, your attention. You realize what you found interesting. You understood how your background influenced what you noticed. This awareness of your own perspective is what we call positionality in research. Now, we are going to practice these research skills with a specific exercise. I will walk you through it using this image as an example. Then you will do the same probably with a social media post of your choice. So I would want you to select some content. First, that will be the first step. You pick a story or post from someone you follow. Just like I'm using this treasure chests image. You would choose one post that interests you. It could be anything, a photo, a story, or even a reel. Then we'll look at the second aspect, pure description. What do you see? Let's start with what we actually see, just the facts only. For this image I have posted, I see a wooden treasure chest on a beach, a group of children standing together, a pirate flag waving, birds in the sky, a sunset or sunrise. Now, you have to notice how I am not making any assumptions yet. I am just describing what is visible. The third part would be the part for interpretation. Now, let's think about what is happening. This appears to be a children's adventure scene. The kids seem to have discovered something exciting. There's a sense of shared discovery and wonder. You see how we are moving from pure description to making meaning out of what we have seen. The last part I would want us to consider is the period, the stage at which we ask what questions we would have asked to understand the issue more. And these are the inquiry questions. Finally, what questions would you help us to understand more? For instance, what led these children to find this chest? What's inside the chest? Who does the treasure belong to? Why is this moment significant? These questions help us to dig deeper into the meaning of context. Now comes one of the most valuable parts of our exercise. And this part is on reflecting on how we move from observation to interpretation. Let's explore this together through some thoughtful discussion. We want to look at observation versus interpretation. Let's start with the first question. What's the difference between what you observed and what you interpreted? To facilitate this discussion, first, let's get some examples of pure observations and then compare this with interpretations. Then we'll look for more moments when people mixed the two up. Now, just look at this picture. The example we would use will be based on this. In this particular picture, we observe that someone, a person, is holding a coffee cup. That will be observation. Then we can also say that the person seems to be enjoying a relaxing morning. That would be interpretation. Now, what I want to find out from you is, was it hard to separate observation from interpretation? Did anyone catch themselves interpreting when they meant just to observe? What helped you to distinguish between the two? Now, I want us to consider another aspect, personal experience and the impact of personal experience and on what we observe and interpret. So moving to our second question about how your own experience influence your interpretation. The key points I want us to explore are: one, the professional background. My professional background may influence what I observe and what I interpret. Apart from that, cultural perspectives may also influence that, personal memories, and then maybe your current life situation. Now, I would want to ask some questions. Did anyone notice their professional expertise affecting their view? How did your cultural background shape what you noticed? Were there any personal memories that colored your interpretation? Now, the last one we'll look at is observations. Our final questions, assumptions. Our final question looks at assumptions. Assumptions are things we took for granted without any evidence. And the key areas we want to probe are maybe social assumptions, cultural assumptions, contextual assumptions, and maybe technological assumptions. Example, we might assume a busy coffee shop means good coffee, when it could just be a convenient location. This brings us to the end of our introductory session on qualitative research. And basically, what we have tried to explore is to understand the fact that when we are dealing with qualitative research, we are going to be engaging in observing, interpreting, asking critical questions, and then interpreting what we have observed in different ways that are influenced by a lot of assumptions, our experiences, and culture. Thank you very much, and join me in the next series.